place that's very personal to me. It's a place I've lived many years of my life, unfortunately, due to early childhood trauma. And I want to share a little bit of the story first, and I want to thank Chap for yesterday for giving me a little bit more courage to share a little bit more of my personal story at the beginning. Because there's something very special at the end of this presentation I want to share that was a very important validation for me as a self-studied scientist with very little college education. And so I want you to imagine that you woke up one morning and you look around and you recognize all the objects in your room and in your house and the people in your house, and you go to the bathroom and you're washing your hands and you look in the mirror and you recognize the person in the mirror also. But there's something off, there's something different, there's something missing. It feels like the world's flat, it feels like there's emptiness to it, and it's almost like you're watching somebody else's movie. Because there's something essential, there's something meaningful missing from this experience. And this is disassociation. Disassociation isn't a mental state. It's actually a deep sensory disconnect from reality. It's often a response from intense trauma, where the brain is trying to protect itself, but in doing so, it alters the way it processes the world. Now, the challenging part for someone that's disassociated is that the world hasn't changed, but the way our brain specifically processes and predicts our reality has. So today I want to explore with you how trauma disrupts our predictive processing, how this creates the experience of disassociation, and most importantly, how we can retrain our perception to re-engage with the world in a meaningful and safe way. So as all of you know, that vision is our dominant sense. And when someone experiences disassociation, what happens is the emotional meaning behind what we see is completely lost. The world appears flat and disconnected. It's almost like something essential is missing. So a little story, a personal story of my own, is I was at a family Christmas party, and I was sitting in the chair, observing my family all having conversations and kids playing on the floor, laughing and having fun. And I'm sitting in this chair, observing everything like I'm not actually there. Like I'm watching a movie of my family have fun. And as I was sitting there, this quote popped in my head. If you've never listened to or read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. But there's this a quote in there. He said it was like, be less impressed and more involved. And that quote hit me and it like zapped me into the present moment. And I was like, wow, like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? I need to like be with them having fun. But if you've ever been disassociated, coming back from a disassociated state into reality or back to the present moment is quite startling and quite unsettling. Because the problem is you don't know how long you've been gone. You don't know what's changed. You don't know the importance of conversations. So you can't just jump back into an adult situation because you don't really know what they've been talking about. So in that moment, I did what my training has done by helping people doing childlike movement to help process trauma, is I got on the floor with the kids. I laid on the floor with the little kids and I played with toys for half an hour until I found myself back. Because that was the safest place to be, because kids don't really have an agenda, they're just playing. So I didn't have to worry about what conversation I missed or some important information. Disassociation disrupts the brain's ability to assign meaning to what we see. The good news is that meaning can be restored and we can shift how we engage with our environment. And if any of you have been with me last year, you saw the cube that I brought in, and that is just an augmented reality. It gives us a space to be in, an environment to be in that has no meaning to anything. We assign the meaning to everything that's inside that space. So predictive processing is how our brain makes sense of the world, not through just what we see or reacting to what we see, but it predicts what we expect to see. And it shapes our experiences based on those expectations. It's the expectations of what's happened to you, or what loop you're stuck in. So when trauma occurs, it creates these like outdated prediction models. It's like driving around in a city with a map that's 20 years old. Some of the things just don't make sense anymore, and you can't really get there. So in a sense, the brain is trying to protect us, but what it's actually doing is it's keeping us disconnected. So the more we avoid these overwhelming experiences, the more we reinforce the brain's old prediction patterns. It's like running on a treadmill of fear. You can just keep running, but you never really get anywhere. And in my personal experience as someone that's been through this for so many years of your life, it's like being stuck on a really terrible merry-go-round where the loop is going over and over again, and you know you're on the loop and you can't get off of it. And the worst part is like there's this song playing that you can't make stop, and it just keeps playing over and over and over again, and you know you're on it, but you can't stop it. So the good thing is we can break this cycle. And by doing this, we need to engage our perception in a way that forces the brain to update its model of reality. We have to give the brain new, safe experiences that challenge these old predictions. So how can we break the loop? One of the things I discovered kind of intuitively as I was starting to work on this, all of what I've been studying, I happened upon visual free association. And what this does is a technique that helps us restore the emotional meaning to our perception. So how does it work? I should remember my slides over here. All right, I'm not good at PowerPoint person. So predictive processing is how our brain interprets the world using different signals. One of them being lateral, which is everything that's in the space around us. That's what we see. But it doesn't include humans, because humans are other variables. So they can create a triggering effect where inanimate objects that aren't going to move, like that chair can't do anything to me, so it's a neutral thing. So our lateral signaling is everything that we see in the space that surround us. And then our perception from our body to our brain is what we call forward signaling. It takes our sensory information from here, what we sense or what we perceive from our current reality, and sends it to our brain, to our database. And then our database sends back down backward signaling back to the body as a prediction. And it's predicting off of what we perceive is happening, but our perceptions can be from our map from 20 years ago. So the predictions can be of something that's not actually real right now, but was real then. So how do we re-engage this perception? How do we use the free association and the predictive processing to break these loops? And what I'm going to say sounds so simple, but it's been 20,000 hours and 36 years of my life figuring this one little simple thing out. Is that we need to re-engage with the objects in the space. So like I can say this chair, right, to a disassociated person, and to say that this experience to me is very real, it feels like you're a floating eyeball sometimes. It feels like you're weightless, or that you don't actually have a body, that you're just existing in this space, so you can see everything, but nothing's really actually real. So the difference is if I walk up to this chair and say, this chair is cold, and it's made of cloth, and it's comfortable, right? Now I'm actually engaging with the object. I'm saying like, this object is real in my perception, this object is real in my environment, and I'm gonna start engaging with it. I'm gonna start describing it, okay? So we do that around our room, that's our lateral signaling. That makes us present, that brings us here. Like these are all the inanimate objects, I'm gonna call them what they are. This is a table, and this is a piece of paper, and this is a podium, and this is a computer, and these are telling my brain that these are things that are in my space that are okay, and they're safe. Okay, and then once we do that, and we become that present space, now we have to restore the emotional meaning to those objects. Because now we know they're real, and now we know that we're like in the present moment, we're here again. But there's still no meaning to the objects. And what we do with those objects is you go around the room, you can pick up like family heirlooms, or you can talk about this chair, right? This beautiful chair that sits in the corner of your room that you rarely ever sit in. But you're gonna go like, I wonder who gave me that chair? Where'd that come from? And you start creating these memories around this object. And the one that I like to think about with the chair is like, think of all the beautiful conversations you had with all these people that are really special to you that sat in that chair when they came to visit you, right? These are emotional, meaningful things that we can remember about an object in space. And in doing that, it brings us not just to the present moment, but it engages us back with the things in our environment that makes us feel safe and comfortable. So now we're present, and now we've brought in our emotional meaning again. How do we seal off? How do we like create a new prediction? How do we like finish the loop? How do we cut off the loop and give us a brand new perception of our current reality? Is that once you've created that safe space in your brain, the next place is creativity and play. Because our brain needs to be safe to play. So I always do a trigger warning with this. I used to not, but after going to enough conferences and saying this as an example, surprisingly enough with mental health therapists being blown away by it too, is that a little girl playing with her dolls in a safe home is playing with her dolls. But a little girl playing with her dolls in an unsafe home is listening for footsteps. She's not playing, she's hypervigilant. She's paying attention to what could happen next. So if we become that present moment, we cover our meaningful thing, and then we can actually play in that space that we deemed safe again. And now we've rewired that trauma feeling with a playful sensory experience. And that's what changes that prediction forward, is play. And that's why play therapy is so powerful for kids, but we're still just bigger kids. And play works the same way for us as it does for little kids. So over time, we learn to see the present not just as real and tangible, but a place that's safe again to inhabit. So in conclusion, disassociation is not a fixed state. It's just prediction error. It's the brain doing its best to protect itself, but in doing so, cuts us off from the very experiences that make life meaningful. But the good news is that predictions can change. The brain is always updating itself. We're always actively challenging our outdated patterns, and we can reshape how we see and experience the world. It's a journey of reclaiming perception, of moving beyond the shadows of trauma and embracing the richness of life. So today I want you to remember this one thing, is that you're not trapped in old predictions. You're not trapped in old trauma. Healing is possible, presence is possible, and the world is waiting for you to see it again. So some of you came in a little late, there's something special that happened last week for me, as somebody that has less than a year of college education and have like figured out how to like be here and sharing this wonderful information with you guys is what I want to quote there. Doesn't mean it didn't exist. And like we know with EMDR, like the memory is still there, but your body isn't re-experiencing it. It's not, this is what I share with people, is that your memories, like the memory of the thing can't go away because that's the box in the basement that's there forever. But what changes is that you don't have to re-experience it in your body over and over again. You don't have to feel the feeling of a reality that doesn't exist anymore. Now, the special thing that happened last week was I got an endorsement from Carl Friston, the godfather and the creator of predictive processing, that wrote the first paper on it over 20 years ago. So as somebody that has been on a path of learning my entire life without academics, and wondering, am I the smart person? I don't know. All the teachers told me I wasn't. So in spite of all of them, my journey was to prove that I actually am. And to have somebody at that level of science that has over 10,000 citations in academic research to support me and say that I am who I thought I was, is very special to me. So that's what I have this morning. I thank you guys for listening. There's my contact information as well. If you want to reach out to me and have any questions about predictive processing, where it's going, what active inference is. There's the new AI, right? AI right now is generative, right? It's all based on past. It's all based on what happened before. Active inference is where it's going. Active inference is where it's what AI truly is it's only as intelligent as we tell it to be. It's the information that we give it. It just does calculations. But AI, as the sense of active inference, is that it's constantly predicting forward into the future. It's taking patterns it's seeing and predicting the patterns of the future and saying, hey, I know you think it's this way, but that data that's coming in that looks like it's resistant is actually out of excitement for the launch, right? Yeah.
Do you use a particular generative AI yourself?
I use a lot of ChatGPT right now, the 4.0.
Which is not generative.
It's not, yeah.
It's just word-based, right?
It's just, yeah, exactly. The one that, so Carl Friston, he's actually a lead scientist at a company called Versus, and it's the first one that's actually using active inference as an AI model.
Cool.
So,
all right.
But yeah, so that's where we're trying to get to, because the idea of active inference going forward would be like the AI agent would be your co-pilot. It's your friend, it's your buddy that you're going to bounce information off of. Or, you know, I have ideas for car technology where you actually get in your car and the car has been learning your patterns and what you want to do, and you get in the car and it sets everything based on the time of the day or where you're going and what it knows about you, and then it sets all your parameters to that based on what it knows about you. And that's what active inference would do over that. So yeah, so that's what I got. So thank you so much.